Hey everybody, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. Welcome to the Craft Room Helpers What Do You Color With collab and giveaway. There are 10 crafters in this collaboration, and we will be sharing with you a variety of coloring mediums. Our goal is to introduce you to coloring mediums you may not have, or maybe even new uses for them. We are also having giveaways on each of our channels from various sponsors. On my channel, I'll be giving away a Little Blue Button Stamps $10 gift certificate and the card I'll be making in this video. My giveaway is open worldwide. All you need to do to be entered into the giveaway is be a subscriber and leave a comment. Below in the description box are all the rules on how to be eligible and the link ups for the rest of the crafters involved, as well as links to all of our wonderful sponsors shown here. Be sure to click where it says Show More to see everything. To make it easy to find the next video in the lineup, it will be at the top of the description box below. Now let me show you what I color with. The digi I chose from Little Blue Button Stamps is called Spike and Anna Having Coffee. I think it's so cute and it was so much fun to color up this image. First, I'm starting off with Copic markers. This is my go-to coloring medium normally, but I thought I would share with you guys a couple of interesting kind of differences from what I normally do. So first of all, I'm using an RV color, that pale pink. It's almost like a bubblegum pink, but a little bit paler, with the V04, which is a lilac. So I'm mixing the pink and the purple, but you can see how well it mixes together. It's just part of the same warm tones, even though it's not part of the same color family. And I wanted to see what it would do when mixed together. So I'm going back in. I started first with a base color of the pink, then I went in with a little bit of that lilac, and then I'm going back in and mixing back in with the RV, and then reestablishing the darker lilac color again, trying to keep in the highlights. And I think the blending came out really fun. I can also imagine this color combination being used in mermaids or in hair with funky images. So I think this will be a really good color combination to go back to again and again and be a little bit different. I decided I was going to make the little hat that she's wearing the same. I layer in the base color, put in the darker shadowed areas around the top of the little beanie and at the base, and then go back in and blend in with the RV again. Now I decided for the little trim around her collar, her belt, her little buttons, I was going to use that BG combination. That is a more traditional combination since it's from the same color family, and it's so tiny, I just needed 2 colors to do that blending. I decided I was going to repeat that color combination on the collar of Spike, and now I'm going to go in and just layer in a very pale, warm gray for her hair. I just want to figure out where the shadows are going to be, and so I'm coming in right at the base of her hat, right at the base of her chin, all around her face, where each of the kind of curly areas are cinched. That's where I think a shadow will be. And then where it's more voluminous or more rounded, I'm going to leave those areas more white. And I'm just using the standard kind of flicking motion for this coloring. And I think already you can get a sense of that volume of her hair. I'm going in now with a little bit darker color here with that warm W3, and I'm not going to keep her hair this gray color, but I just wanted to show you guys what it looks like to layer in those colors, just to put in the shadows and the highlights where I think they should go. I'm doing the same thing with Spike, and this image is a little easier to do because there are more kind of texture or fur lines in the image, and I'm just following that along. I'm layering in the darker warm W3. I'm also coloring in his spot, the base of the ears, under his chin, around his collar. It'll be a little darker around the edges of his face, underneath the fur around his chest, the cast shadows on the tops of the legs where they join the body, and also at the base of the feet. Now I thought I would color in her boots. I decided to give her black boots, but I'm not using a black. I'm using a warm W7 and a W5 just to give a little bit of dimension there. It's hard to see on the camera video, but in real life, you can really see that difference. I am also coloring up the puppy's nose with the same W7 as well as the eyes. I'm giving the inside of the ears a little bit of pink with the R20, and the R08 is for her lips and Spike's tongue. Now for the coffee cup, I thought I would repeat that, say like a pale yellow green. If you're interested in the particular colors I'm using, all of them will be listed on my accompanying blog post, which I'll link to below. Now for the color pencils. These two colors I thought I would use for Anna's hair. So I'm layering in kind of more detailed lines with this color pencil. And you can tell I'm using the same kind of flicking motion. And I'm going back in with a sharp colored pencil. And you can see already it's adding a lot of detail and texture to her hair. That's a great thing about layering in color pencils over Copic markers. And I will warn you though, not to go in the opposite direction, meaning don't use color pencils and then Copic markers, because you can really quickly ruin the nibs on your Copic markers because the waxiness or the color pencil medium can gunk up your Copic marker nibs. So always start with Copics and then layer in the detailed texture with the color pencils. And I mean, really quickly you can see here the texture of her hair is really becoming obvious. And just make sure you're able to keep your color pencils sharp. I actually went too far, I think, so I'm losing a little bit of the sharpness of this color pencil, but here you can see I'm sharpening as I go. I just keep my color pencil sharpener just to the left of where I'm coloring to remind myself to keep those color pencils sharp. Now I'm using this metallic gold color just to add highlights and do a little bit more blending. And I probably should have stopped here, but I end up going more and more just because I really like dark colored hair. I think it's because I have dark colored hair. So I'm going to add in more layers, but you can already see here, I could have just stopped and she would have had beautiful kind of medium brown hair this way. I'm going in now and putting in highlights with a white color pencil, and you can't really see it again on this video very clearly, but it really does add a nice highlight with that white color pencil. Now I'm going in with an even darker color pencil because I wanted to get even more richness, and I probably again could have stopped here. I really like having a full range of colors from pretty pale to a mid-tone to very dark, and I think that that adds a really great three-dimensional look when you do that. So what I normally do with Copic markers, I'm doing here with color pencils. And I think it adds great texture, detail that is harder to get from Copic markers just because the ink bleeds more or spreads more. And I decided with the white color pencil, I could add more texture to Spike as well. I think off camera, I might have missed a section here. I did add a YR21, I believe, on Spike to give him more of a kind of golden color. I want him to look like a pale brown puppy, but I thought that the white color pencil added great texture and gave him the look of more furriness. As you can see, just adding each layer of color really adds a lot of texture and dimension to the images. Now I'm going in and coloring up Anna's skin tone. I decided I was going to give her a pale E51 base and then add shadows with an E21. Oh, and I forgot the little stripy collar of her, above her dress, so I'm coloring that in with a W7. Now for the shadowed areas around her face, around her edges, on each side of her nose, around her eyes, not the top of her eye, between her eyebrow and her eye, but along the edges. And I'm also giving her a little blush with an R20, giving her little shadowed areas on her legs. And now I'm going back in and blending out with that E51, adding in the shadows with an E21. And here I'm blending out, and I think adding the blending of the light E51 around her blush really gives it a natural look. At this point, I decided Spike could go a little bit darker. So I'm adding I believe this is chestnut, but like I said before, if you're interested in the particular Copic or Prismacolor color pencils that I'm using, I list them all in detail in my blog post. And here I'm just adding more flick marks, more texture to all of his fur, and I think it gives him a nice realistic furry look. I was a little confused which direction the fur would grow around his snout, but it's not a big deal. It's just really tiny flicking marks. So I'm really liking how the fur is looking at this point. Very textured, very realistic, even though he's a very cartoony dog. Now I thought I would add some color pencil highlights to Anna's dress. So I'm adding some white highlights with a white color pencil, just trying to give her dress a little bit of extra curvature, even though that's not in the image itself. I'm also adding highlights to her hat and toward the top of her arms and her chest of her dress. Now I'm going in with a dahlia purple. This is a deeper kind of warm purple that I thought would look nice to give an even richer look to her dress color. And I'm putting that on the either side of the white highlights. So it looks like there are actually folds, to her dress, even though there aren't fold lines. I just think it gives a nice, more voluminous look to her dress. And then I'm going even darker here with, I can't remember that. I think this might be violet, and I really like that color combination. So for her dress, not only did I use a kind of an odd color combination from two different families using the Copic markers, but I'm also using kind of drastic different colors with the Prismacolor color pencils. And I think they're still blending really well. I find color pencils very forgiving, not only because you can just add more depth from light to dark just with changing the pressure that you put on the color pencil as you're using it, but also because it's so pointed and it doesn't spread on the paper like markers do. You can really get some fine detail coloring done with color pencils. And I think this adds a nice, almost a shiny look to her dress and her hat. For the cut around the image, I'm using a Pretty Pink Posh scalloped frame die. It's the smaller one, and I'm also cutting a piece of purple cardstock that I had from my stash with that same die to create a framed look. For the card base, I'm using some hot pink or fuchsia cardstock, and then I'm using some pattern paper just with some wet glue to put it down. The stripe colored pattern paper I thought would go nicely with all the colors that I used to color up the image. And I'm using the white frame that I die cut around, as well as obviously the image. And then I'm going to add the purple frame around the top of that just to add a little bit of dimension to this card. I want to make this card easy to mail, so I don't want to add a ton of dimension, but that little bit I think does add something. Now, to give them a place to stand so they don't look like they're floating, I thought, I should have really colored in some grass. So I'm using a YG25, a YG17, and I think I also use a G17, and I'm just flicking to create the sense of grass. Again, you can stop at any point. This is not going to be a realistic kind of grass, obviously. A cartoony one that coordinates nicely with the cartoony Anna and Spike. I'm also adding some shadowed or darker areas just under her feet and his feet. And I think that adds a little sense of dimension or shadowing even in the grass. Now I'm using a Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen in XS, which is very thin, just to scribble in a little sentiment. And it says, "It's a dog and coffee kind of day." And just to make the font a little bit prettier, I decide to add little dots to the ends of each of the letters. And I think it makes a really cute sentiment. Remember, you don't always have to use stamp sentiments. You can write anything you like if you're fairly okay with your penmanship. For the inside, I wrote off camera, "Oh, who am I kidding? Every day is a dogs and coffee kind of day." And then for Just a little coordination, I thought I would add a little bit of purple cardstock, and the back side of that striped was this pretty plaid, and I'm gluing that on to the lower 1/3 of the card and cutting off the excess, and this is going to be my liner sheet for inside of my card. I hope you've enjoyed this process video of Copic and color pencil coloring. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to check out all the other crafters sharing their "What do you color with?" videos. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day.